Broadcast Amsterdam Breakfast.
Hi, this is Chris. Join me for breakfast 5 days a week. I shall bring you a little bit of gossip, a lot of tunes, and of course cereal songs at 8:30 each morning. And I'm not always alone. I'm often joined by Broadcast Amsterdam's very own Gailey Allruth. And well, Zack from NL Times, he just can't stay away either. Monday to Friday from 7, right here on Broadcast Amsterdam.
Broadcast Amsterdam Breakfast.
And good morning. This is Broadcast Amsterdam. It's 8:33, and joining me now from NL Times to continue the concept of news here on Broadcast Amsterdam, it is Zack Newmark. Good morning, Zack. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Busy week this week. You've got the elections going on in the States. We've got Donald Trump now saying, "Oh, I've got COVID too," and we've got new COVID restrictions here in the Netherlands going nationwide. You must be swept off your feet.
Well, I'm pretty glad that that we don't have very much to do with covering Donald Trump, so that's a good thing. But of course, we'll be looking for any reaction from the cabinet. In regards to that, or if I assume that the cabinet's just going to be sending well wishes and hope that he gets better, that type of thing. So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye out on that. And for the morning, we're watching lots of stories regarding job losses in the Netherlands over the past 6 months, and businesses setting up more testing facilities so that their employees can get tested for coronavirus infections faster. And return to work sooner than perhaps the testing from the GGD would allow them to.
And is that? Now, do you think is that in reaction to the government saying businesses are going to have to be more responsible for stopping the spread of the virus? Do you think?
Well, we're taking a look into that, and obviously where we start to ask some questions is that how important is the testing when the advice is to work from home? Yeah. And, if the advice is to work from home, the advice isn't to, go to work, get tested, and stay at work. The advice is actually, to stay at home at least for the next 3 weeks. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and kind of checking out how businesses and people are reacting to that.
Okay. So that's well, and also we've got the national rules have gone into place as well. Well, the rules that were put into place for some of the bigger cities, they now seem to be going nationwide. Is that like the mondkapjesplicht, or the
yes.
The request, the dringend advies, the urgent advice that they're saying to wear a face mask? That advice has now gone nationwide, and it's also creeping into high schools as well at the moment. Is that so they can make it more compulsory? What's going on?
Well, okay, so here we get into two things. So first, the ability to make masks compulsory is has not particularly been challenged in court, except in very limited circumstances. So that's during the experiments that were going on in Amsterdam and Rotterdam. So doing a national face mask mandate, and whether or not the government has the legal authority to that, could be something that could be challenged at a court level. And we speculate, again, we're not reporting this, but we're speculating that that perhaps one of the reasons there's not an obligation to wear face masks in indoor public spaces is because it might not be legally enforceable. Now, we've heard that last night there's now a parliamentary majority in favor of the coronavirus law. And the coronavirus law, the special law that's being put together, that could give the government more powers to issue a mandate such as a face mask obligation. A similar mandate cannot really be enforced at the regional level. So that's why you saw Amsterdam's Mayor Femke Halsema really pushing people to wear masks, but saying, any requirement to do so has to come from the national government, that regional authorities or even local authorities with their own cities cannot necessarily enforce such a law.
Yeah, I see also you've got a report similar, carrying on from that, or a similar kind of theme from a couple of days ago, really, or yesterday, about the Dutch government saying, schools can make face masks mandatory, but there's no legal obligation. This balance between what's mandatory, because, it may not be a legal requirement, but if you can't go to school, if your school says, well, you need one or you're not getting in, it pretty much might as well be a legal requirement.
Well, but then the onus is on the school. And then what they do is they separate, for example, the Spinoza Lyceum in Amsterdam, where I think 50 or 55 people have come down with a coronavirus infection versus a secondary school that's, in the middle of Drenthe that might have no infections. And whether or not, a secondary school that's in a rural area that's not particularly hard hit, do they need to wear masks, at the same time that someone else in Amsterdam does? Mm-hmm. And so what the government is really saying is that the schools can take this upon themselves to decide for themselves. The complexity of that is that schools are required to basically have a sort of contract with their students about the types of rules that need to be upheld. And so for a school to put in a mask mandate, they have to come to an agreement with a student council and a parent council to make that a rule at the school. The school direction cannot just say, okay, we're all wearing masks now. They have to actually go to these student committees and get approval for the participation of it. Likewise, schools' employees already have their own terms of employment, and so those will also need to be amended in order to force staff to wear masks. So it gets very complicated when the government says, we're not going to make you do it yourselves. And then the government also says this advice is effective immediately, because these are not procedures that can necessarily be carried out immediately.
Yeah, I get that. So that does make sense. You just push the burden and make it the decision. But there are obviously, as you say, there are advantages in that. One school may not require it because it's very rural. Another one may well require it, and it seems odd. If you really don't require it, it would be odd to have to make kids wear it. So I can see both sides of the story as well there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and then the downside, of course, if you're living in Amsterdam, which this is Broadcast Amsterdam, so let's keep the focus there, is that you get these situations where you've got students who will wear a mask, students who refuse to wear a mask. So then what's the, effectiveness of that policy in general? And then those students who don't wear a mask because they're not being required to at schools kind of have this attitude of, well, why should I wear a mask anywhere else? So around where our office is, you've got a Lidl, and you've got an Albert Heijn, and you've got a couple of snack bars, and you've got a couple of, short takeout cafes where the clientele and the workers are wearing masks. But the clients who are not wearing a mask are largely secondary school students who show up in droves of, 40, 50 students at a time, crowd around outside, don't keep their distance. And, it's questionable about what to do, because it's an advice to keep 1.5 meters apart. And it's an advice to wear a mask. And so what's the compulsory aspect of that? And who is in charge of enforcing that? And is it the public on the street, or is it the shopkeeper, or is it the police, or the security officers, or the government?
Yeah, or the school, or the teachers, or the caretaking staff, or the admins. Exactly. And then we've got a school next door to me, and I'm sure they've got a rule of face masks and what have you. But then at lunch times, at break times, the kids come out and they all smoke in the doorway, and they're all got certainly no face masks when they're smoking, obviously, and they're standing right next to my doorway, clutching it up, and they're very close together. So it's like, well, it kind of puts me at risk if I'm coming and going, but certainly they're at risk. So anything that the school is doing inside to help them when they're all huddled in a corner on a rainy day, they're definitely closer than 1.5 meters to each other. So.
Indeed. So yesterday, we got the government put out, what their advice is for secondary schools, and that's what you and I have talked about. And then the government or at least the Prime Minister gave comments into Parliament earlier in the week about what the face mask advice was, or the urgent face mask advice was for the Netherlands as a country. That advice is expected to be firmed up in written language and released to the public at any time today before 6 p.m.
Yeah, that'll be the Friday press release, that one. So
yeah, so we're waiting on that. The Prime Minister himself will not be doing the Cabinet's regularly scheduled weekly press conference. He's in Brussels right now, having done the negotiations over Belarus sanctions. So the expectation is that another member of cabinet will be handling that press conference. I wouldn't be surprised to see Hugo de Jonge or Ferd Grapperhaus involved in the press conference or giving comment today. Grapperhaus, who's the Justice and Security Minister, can talk about enforcement policies and the coronavirus law, and the fine being reduced to 95 euros, which was agreed on last night, while Hugo de Jonge can certainly speak to the face mask policy.
Yeah. Okay. So that is it is a busy day, right?
I mean, what isn't? You know, we talk it seems every week we're on the phone. We're talking about, is this a busy day or is that a busy day? They're all busy days.
But today seems specifically, there seems to be an awful lot of stuff going on. I think because the international spin is affecting everything so locally as well. And, you know, I mean, okay, we're not necessarily covering the American elections, but you can't get away from it. It's going to be on all the local news channels. And, of course, look at yourself, loads of Americans scattered around this city. So a lot of people very interested in that as well. So
no, and, you know, which I think also interesting, expected, and unsurprising for so many people. I mean, you know, the idea of President Trump getting coronavirus did not come as some great shock to me right now. You know, the guy's been addressing large throngs of people, has been, you know, doesn't regularly keep his distance and doesn't wear a mask. So it's not terribly surprising that not only should he have gotten coronavirus from one of his top aides, that his wife would have also. So not terribly surprising, I would say.
Absolutely. Anyway, let's. I want him to get better just so that he can lose the election fairly. So I'll just put one out there.
I'm not going to wish ill will on anyone.
No.
You know, so certainly, you know, let's see if he gets better. But at the same time, kind of in a higher risk category when it comes to people with COVID. You know, at least those other people at that high risk category don't necessarily have access to the level of healthcare that he has.
No.
I'm guessing he's probably taking hydroquinine at this point, or hydrochloroquine.
Or drinking bleach.
Point.
Drinking bleach.
Or
He
drinking
could be
bleach.
doing. Exactly. Oh, and then when you said that he was talking to throngs, I just thought thongs. I thought Donald Trump in a thong. I think we should leave it at that. I think that's
you know what? I'm going to leave that one alone, and I think that's a perfect moment for you to play me off the air.
I think it is as well.
The idea of me being associated with Donald Trump, coronavirus, and thongs is probably not something that I want to be associated with.
You will not find stories about Donald Trump's thong on Zack's site, NL Times today, but you will find all of the other stories which matter to you. Zack Newmark, NLTimes.nl. Thank you very much for your time, as always, this morning.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.